Greetings, my name is Tristan Rhodes with Victress Games. By the end of this tutorial, you will be able to create massive armies of enemies for your characters to destroy. This tutorial will cover some advanced functionality, but I am confident that you will be able to copy what I have done and eventually add your own amazing improvements. I also wanted to mention that this tutorial uses some of the brand new features that were just added to GDevelop Beta 102, including the asset store. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is open a new project, or create a new project. Let's just do an empty game, and we need to add a scene. So click to add a scene, and then just click on the scene to go into it. Okay, first thing we're going to do is add a background. I'm going to zoom out with my mouse. I use the middle wheel to scroll out. So this black line is what the players will see when they play your game. So we're going to add a background. Let's add something from the asset store. Space. Where did I see this? Space shooter backgrounds. Let's do this BlackSpace tiled sprite. Okay, that's there. And we can just drag it onto the screen. And we want to cover the whole thing. The easiest way to do that is just go here. You want to start at 0, 0. If you don't know, 0, 0 is always the top left corner of your game screen. And we want to do a custom size. The width will be 800 and the height will be 600. This is like the default size that GDevelop uses for its view, the size of the game as resolution. So now we have our BlackSpace sprite, the tiled sprite, over our viewing area. If you click View, there you are. That's all it is right now. That's our preview. Let's make this a little fancy by adding a parallax feature. Parallax is basically just means that the speed of the background will be different from the speed of your things in the foreground, like your player. Typically people use this to make the background appear more distant, and so just like in real life, things farther away would move slower, and that's a really cool effect. But in this instance, we're actually going to use it to make the space look faster, the movement look faster, so it kind of adds some excitement to the game. So to do that, let's double click on our object, this BlackSpace, and go to Behaviors. And we're going to add a new behavior to the object. The one I wanted, the parallax feature, is not installed by default. That's not a problem. It's super easy. Search for new behaviors is what we're going to be doing. Search for new behaviors. And parallax for tiled sprite. That's what we're going to select. Okay, we'll install that in the project. Okay, now we have these two new things here, horizontal parallax and vertical parallax. I actually want to add them both. So I clicked on it, and there's a horizontal parallax. I'm going to add a second one, second behavior, vertical parallax. And like I described before, typically people like to go between 0 and 1, which means for 0.5 is 50% slower speed than the foreground. That's for making the background go slower, but we're going to make it go faster. So the background's not going to go twice as fast as the foreground in both vertical and horizontal directions. Okay, and if we preview this, there's nothing. You can't see any changes quite yet. We need to add more stuff. So we have the parallax. Okay. Now, well, let's add a player. Let's use the asset store. under the space shooter, let's just sort ship. I wanted to use this pointy blue player ship because in my game for this tutorial, we're just going to have you run into enemies, and I like that pointy front because it could cause some damage to the enemies. Okay, add to the game. Close the asset store. There it is. There's our blue player ship. Drag it into there. That's what it looks like. And that's what it looked like in the game. Currently it does nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's just static. But that's not hard to change. Super easy to change. Let's add a behavior to the ship. So double click on it. Behaviors. And then add a behavior to the object. This is a built-in one called top-down movement. And we just click on it. You can adjust these settings later if you want, but we're just going to accept the default settings. And now let's test it. There we go. We have a an object that moves. It looks kind of funny, doesn't it? Oh, I remember what we need to do. So if I push up, this is what happens. If I push left, this is what happens. See how it's facing the wrong way? I'm going to push right. It's facing. It doesn't face the right way. Now this is because GDevelop expects your sprites to start facing to the right. How are we going to fix that? Well, it's super easy. Double click on your player, your ship, and we're going to edit the ship with Piscal. And the easiest thing to do is counter this transform. You just click on this rotate button, basically. We're going to do it till it faces right. Okay, now our ship is facing right. You have to hit save, apply, and let's play it. There we go. Now it's traveling in the direction. I'm clicking right, I'm clicking left with the keyboard, up and down. Okay, so we have a sprite that moves around. Awesome. Okay. Oh, did you see how the background's not moving? That's because we haven't done what we need to do to get the parallax working. Let's do that now. So we need to create a new layer. Layers are used for a lot of things, but one thing you can use them for is determining what shows up on the front, basically ordering how your images appear. So if they overlap, the layer that's on top will be the one that is shown. In this case, we need to create a layer. So click Create Layer. By default, GDevelop sticks it at the top, which is fine. We can move it. Background. We're going to call it just background. Space. And that's what it is. So we don't want it on top. We want it on the bottom. And you can't put it below the background color. Background color is always there, sitting at the bottom. So it's at the bottom of our stack is this space. Now we also have to move our BlackSpace object to that new layer we created. And to do that, just click on the BlackSpace and you say layer background space. This is the layer it's going to. One thing I would like to do also is lock this position in the editor. That's so that I don't accidentally select the top, select the background when I'm trying to work on other characters. So once you click that, you can do this and you won't be selecting that background anymore. You can move your player around and you don't have to worry about accidentally selecting the background sprite. Okay, let's review. We have a layer called background space and our object which we can't select anymore. The only way to select it now is under the instances list. So you can select it here. And you can see it's on layer background. So let's do a preview of what this looks like. Well, you must have done something wrong. There's no parallax effect. Let's see if I can figure out what happened. Background space. Let's go to the object. There's some instructions on the behavior that tell us what we did. That's under... Oh, I know what the problem is. There's no camera following our player. Like our player can just go, see you later. He's gone. The camera just like staring straight ahead. And it doesn't. The camera's not following the player. We want the camera to always follow this player, which is super easy to do. Let's do that now. All right. So I guess I'll go a little slower. So we just have a blank event here. We went to the Events tab. So this is where we were before. We go to the Events tab, which is this area. And we want to add a condition. Actually, we don't need to add a condition because we always want it centered every single frame of the game. When I say frame of the game, the GDevelop games will have about 60 frames per second, so it's like 60 cycles, or loops, you could say, of action. And I want this to happen, the camera action to happen every single one of those. So I'm not going to put anything on the condition on the left. So I clicked Add Action. It's right here. And you search for camera. And you just say center the camera on an object. And it's so nice. It shows you the two objects that you have. I'm going to choose the player ship. And I'm just going to accept the defaults. Okay, there we go. We've got our very first event. Center camera on our blue player ship. Okay, let's test it out and see if it works. Okay. Haha. Now our ship is staying always in the middle. And I can't tell if you can see, I don't know if you can see the background. It's very light stars. They are moving. And the cool thing about this parallax feature, it's basically magic in my opinion. We never hit the edge of that sprite. Even though it's just a single sprite over the screen, we can go forever in a direction and it will not run out of space. Okay, so things are good. Well, the next thing we should do is create the enemies. What kind of enemies should we create? Let's go to the asset store. I think I saw some here. Enemies. So I'm under Space Shooter enemies. No, I think it was under Abstract Platformer Black enemies. I wanted to do the SwimmingEnemy. This comes from Kenny, the great assets, free assets, game assets there. Let's add it to the game. And I'm not sure, you guys may not know what this is going to look like, so let's add it. You can see about how big it is, and so let's just drop one on the screen. Oh, look at it go. It's going super fast. I don't think I want my animations to be like super fast. Let's change that. So double click on your SwimmingEnemy, and by default GDevelop always plays animation 0, which is the first animation, the top animation, and it's just these 3 frames. That's how it's doing that swimming animations: open, medium, closed, medium. I think I can just, yeah, it goes through these in 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and this is how fast it's doing it. Like each frame gets 0.02 seconds. So I think a better value would be maybe a 1/10 of a second, and then loop is on. So let's try that and see what it looks like. There we go. Now it's just kind of swimming away. We can fly around it, and it's not moving. Maybe we can just sit on top of it. That object's not doing anything. It's animated, but it's not moving. So let's see if we can make it move. So we'll double click on the enemy, and we were going to add a behavior. Behaviors are super powerful. They make complex things very simple for us. So we're going to add a behavior to the object. And in this case, we're adding pathfinding. Characters will be able to avoid objects flagged as obstacles. We're actually not going to be using any obstacles in this tutorial, but it's really cool how it does that. We're just going to set the default speeds and settings. So now it has the ability to we can create events that involve pathfinding. Let's do an event. Let's add the action, and you click on the enemy, and see these A to B, these blue squares. All of these are brand new actions that wouldn't have been here if we didn't add that behavior for pathfinding. So what we want to do is this one, move to a position. And so as you can see, it's the behavior as pathfinding. So where do we want it to move to? Well, we could have it move, I think for this tutorial we're just going to have it move randomly. So let's move a position that's kind of near where it is now, but in a random direction. So to do that, we need to start with its current position. So the current position, you just can click on the enemy, swimming enemy, and if you scroll down through this list, you'll see, actually the list is too long, you won't be able to see it here, but there's a function called x, and that just returns the x value of this object. So if we were to do this, kind of like it is now, let's add y here. This is the y value. Just in case you don't know, x values are left and right on the player screen. So like I told you, top left is 0, 0. As we go to the right, that increases x, and as we go down, that increases y. So that's why I said 0, 0 is the top left. And y increases as you go down, x increases as you go right. So if we just said move to this, it wouldn't actually move. Let's try it. See, it's not moving. That's because we told it to go to where it is now. We need to add some sort of value for it to move to a new location. And there's some pretty cool random functionalities built into GDevelop. I'm going to use random in range because it lets you choose two numbers. And I'm going to say -200 and +200. That basically means pick a number between -200 and 200. And so that's about 400 different values it could pick from. And it is going to add that to its current value. And because I have negative, that means it can go left or right. And I want to do the same thing to the y. So now it can be -200, which is up, and +200, which is down. So this will pick up basically pick a position and then move to it. Let's hit OK. There is something important we need to do here. Remember I talked about how GDevelop does about 60 frames per second? We don't want the enemy to be generating these random positions to move to 60 times per second. Let me click go and maybe you'll see what happens. Yeah, see how it's spazzing? It's kind of twitching, like I'll go here, I'll go here, I'll go here, I'll go here, I'll go here. It doesn't really ever get there because it's constantly creating a new destination. This is also horrible for your CPU. Like my CPU is probably pegged at 100%. I better stop this or my My recording probably, I don't know if that's going to affect the recording. We'll see. But this will peg your CPU 100% because it's like stuck in a loop, constantly doing this over and over. And depending on how many pathfinding objects you have, that can be really make your game laggy. So really, we just want to only want to issue a new command to move when it's done with its old movement. So we're going to click Add Condition, and we want to know when the swimming enemy speed equals 0. So when it stopped. So when this thing is stopped, so that includes at the very beginning when it's not moving, start moving, and it's going to move to our random location. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, there it goes. It's going this way. Now it's going down. Now it should, I think it should hover at about the same spot. And since we haven't programmed any kind of damage or any actions for touching it, like we can touch it and nothing's happening. It's just doing its own random walk throughout space. Great. So that's what we want. Let's make it so that if I run into them, it destroys them. That's kind of this simple mechanic I came up with for this tutorial. Is we will destroy it. That's super easy to add. Let's do this. The condition will be when the player ship is in collision. You can browse for these, or you can actually just type it up here. Is in collision with the swimming enemy. Okay, so the condition blue player is in collision with swimming enemy. So that means that these two are touching. So when that happens, we want, what do we want to happen? Swimming enemy delete. Let's type delete. Delete an object. So when they're in collision, delete the enemy. Let's test it. Alright, we're going to go make a collision happen. Oh, he just disappeared. So basically we did it. We defeated our enemy. But that disappearing wasn't very satisfying, was it? It just popped like a balloon popping and it's gone. Let's make some graphics happen, or some kind of, so the user gets some satisfaction out of, or the player gets some satisfaction out of defeating the enemy. Let's add an explosion. To do that, we'll go to the asset store, add new object, explosion. Oh yeah, it's under particles. Energy explosion. Wishforge Games. He makes tremendous tutorials, which I've basically learned most of the things I do with GDevelop from him. So that's awesome. Shout out to him. Let's add to the game this energy explosion, which actually adds like 3 things. Let's take a look at it. What? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 things. Okay, we'll try this. These are particle emitters that are pre-configured to look awesome. So we're going to make these appear after we have our collision. So let's go back to our events. So we're just going to add on top of this event. So we're going to delete the swimming enemy. We're going to create an object. So to create an object, you select the object, and you click Create. But you do need to choose where it's going to be created. And obviously, we want it to be created where the swimming enemy is. We're going to use that same X. I'm going to copy, paste, Y. So where the swimming enemy X is and where the swimming enemy Y is. And I'm going to move this up because I'm concerned that if we delete the swimming enemy, we may not have this value. The X and Y values may be deleted when we delete the enemy. So, alright, let's copy and paste this. This is how I like to do this. Copy, paste, paste, paste. So remember I said there's 4 objects. So we have this energy sparks. What else do we have? We have explosion smooth. We have explosion energy. And we have lightning texture. So this is the same event. When in your collision, create these 4 objects. And they're particle emitters, and we'll see what they look like. And then delete the enemy. Here we goes, nothing. Oh, that was cool. Oh yeah, I think the lightning texture was too took up too much space, so I'm gonna delete that. Let's try this. This is without the lightning texture now. There we go. I like that. Alright, we got a pretty cool game, huh? We have an enemy that moves around randomly, and we can destroy it. Cool. But this video, I promised you could create armies of those enemies, and I'll do it all within a half page of code. Let's see if I can do that. It's actually very, very easy. What we need to do is install an extension that I made for one of my games. To do that, you have to click on this Project Manager, Functions and Behaviors, and then you have to go down to Search for New Extensions. And it's actually right here. Create multiple copies of an object. Select the object, number of rows and columns, the space between the rows and columns, and the top left starting point. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use this, we're going to install this extension. Alright. So now what we want to do is let's create a new event at the top. Very top. And we need this to happen at the beginning of the game, one time. So we're going to type beginning at the beginning of the scene. So at the beginning of the scene, this only happens once. What are we going to do? We're going to add an action. To get to the extension that I just added, you have to click Other Actions and scroll to the very bottom. Create multiple copies of an object. You click on that, and then you'll see this, create multiple copies of an object. Now, this is where we select which object we're going to make copies of. We want the army of enemies. How many rows? I think I wanted to do 4 rows down and 5 rows across. That's a total of 20 enemies for this tutorial. You'll be able to change those, of course, if you want. The top left position will be 0 by default, and space between rows, if we don't put any space between the rows, all the enemies will just be sandwiched right on top of each other. Well, not on top, they'll be touching each other. So we're going to just do 100 pixels between them. Okay, do you think we have an army? Let's hit play and see if it worked. Boom. Isn't that amazing? Now we have an army. Alright, so we can chase these guys down. It's a lot of fun seeing them explode. We're going to assume they're evil because they have red eyes, so they have malintent. And so we need to stop them. Alright, wait, this is one of the problems. How many guys have I killed? How many are left? And where are they? We could go for eternity trying to search for these guys, right? That would be not a fun game. So, let's see, what should we do first? Let's find out how many are left. That's very easy to do. Let's add a text object. So, let's see, add new object. new object from scratch, text object. And we're going to call this enemies remaining text. Size 40, white text, bold. And this is the initial text. It just kind of helps you see what it will look like on the screen. Alright, now let's add it to our game. Okay, we now have a place for the text to go, but we need to keep it updated. Now, to update that text is very easy. We're just going to leave an empty condition, add action, and we'll choose the text, modify the text, set to, we're going to start with what we have already, which is enemies remaining. Alright, so that will put the text on the screen like we have it now. But we want it to have a dynamic number at the end, right? So we're going to do a plus sign, which will basically add, it concatenates or connects multiple strings together. And strings are just texts. Right now, this is a string called enemies remain. Just shows enemies remaining, and we want to add something. This is a really cool trick. It's so easy. The number of swimming enemies. So use a function called count, and then let's see if it'll let me. Okay. We want to count the swimming enemies, but GDevelop is telling me there's something wrong. The problem is that this is a number. The count of the swimming enemies is a number, and this text object will only accept text. So we need to use a function called toString. Oh, see, it has to be capitalized. Exactly, it has to be capitalized just like that. So you put your number. This is a number, and then when you wrap it in this toString function, whoops, it will become a string. So now it's happy. Oops, I messed that up. Let's go back into there and do the exact same thing. Modify the text. Set to enemies remaining. Alright. And we're going to do toString count, the count function. It gives you some mouse over help, which is pretty cool, isn't it? So the name of the object goes in the middle. Count the number of specified objects, and we're going to choose swimming enemies. Close our parentheses. There we go. Let's hit OK. Let's check it out. It says 19 enemies remaining. 18, 17, 16. Well, that's working, but I don't think we want our text to just disappear as we go chase enemies down. To fix that, we need to create a new layer that will not move when the camera moves, because right now we have our camera following this player. So we'll go to the scene, and let's say add layer. A lot of people like to just use the word UI or the letters UI for user interface. That's fine, I like doing it too. And by default, when you add a layer, it's at the top. So at the top means that nothing will ever cover this. So we have our layer created. That was just a couple clicks. Just here, add layer. However, this text is not on that layer yet. So you have to click on that text and change the layer from base layer to UI, user interface. Now let's test it. Alright. Things are looking good. Days remaining. Okay, there's only 12, 10, 9, 8, 7. So there is a problem still. What happens if we get down to 1, but we have no idea where that player is, or the enemy is? That would be another problem for this game, because you would never be able to complete the game. Let's add something that will indicate where the closest enemy is. Alright, we're going to add an object from the asset store. Let's search for arrow. All assets. There we go. All assets, arrow. We'll use a green arrow. And we'll add it to the game. Let's see how it looks. The arrow is bigger than our ship. Okay, we can fix that. I'm going to delete that. No, I'll just leave it here actually. We need to edit this object to make it smaller. So Piskel, the built-in tool for with GDevelop, will do this. Double-click the green arrow, edit with Piskel, and first thing I want to do is cut this extra space off. There's a quick button that'll do that called crop the sprite. Click that, boom. So all the empty space is gone now. Now we still have a really big image. Let's use this resize function. Resize. So this current sprite is 116 by 100 pixels. We're going to change it to, let's just say 32 by 28. Let's try that. See, it's the same picture, just the blocks are they appear bigger. That's because it's a lot smaller. That may not make sense, but oh, there it is. After I hit apply, you can see that's the size of the arrow. Okay, now we just need to make sure the arrow points at the closest enemy. To do that, we need to find the closest enemy. Let's see. To do that, we're going to, let's see, I think I click on the SwimmingEnemy, pick the nearest object. So, SwimmingEnemy, pick the nearest object, pick the object of this type that is nearest to the specified position. And the position that we are interested in is where the player is. The player's name is Blue Player Ship. We want to know which of these enemies is closest. We're going to pick the nearest. We're going to pick the enemy that's nearest to the ship, basically. We're going to use a really cool function. It's an action. We'll click on the green arrow, and we're going to say put object around another. And so the other object is, okay, the center object. So the center object we want is the ship. The green arrow will be basically around the ship, or at a position around the ship, at a distance of 100 pixels from the ship. But which angle will it be? Well, we want it to be facing the closest enemy. So we would choose oh yeah, we have to use this brand new function that was added to GDevelop just in this latest 102, beta 102. And basically click your object. We want to know the angle in degrees from the blue player ship to angle to object. So what is the angle from the player ship to this swimming enemy. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's hit OK and see what this looks like. And we're gonna do a we're gonna play and see what it looks like. Okay, a lot of things happening. Hey, that looks kind of good. The arrow apparently is jumping around a lot, but it's pointing at the closest enemy. That's pretty cool. However, the arrow itself is not pointing just where it is around the ship. Let's make the arrow point also at that same direction. To do that, you just have to rotate it. So we're going to add action, green arrow, and rotate towards an angle. And the angle is exactly the same one we just did. From the blue player ship, angle to object, the swimming enemy. And speed in degrees, we want it to instantly, so 0 is immediate rotation. So rotate the green arrow towards basically the swimming enemy. Let's try this. Okay, perfect. Look at that. However, in the early game, there's so much action happening, it's just kind of distracting with that arrow jumping around, back and forth. I only want to save that arrow for when it's kind of the end game and there's a lot less enemies to see and you just need it to finish off the last ones. So let's add a condition for that. Alright, so I'm going to let's create a new event, and the condition for this new event will be the count of the swimming enemy is less than 10. So that's like once half of them are dead. Now this is something that's kind of hard to find, but it's very useful and I use it quite a bit. It's found under other conditions and other. Compare two numbers. And it's very often you want to compare two numbers in game development. And the number we want to look at is, remember that count function? The count of the swimming enemy. So that's how many swimming enemies are left. And we want a condition to be when it's less than or equal to 10. So by default we start with 20 enemies, and so this means make events, we wanted to find out when there's half of them are gone. And I'm just going to take this event that was above it by itself and drag it till it's a sub-event of that condition. So this condition, when there's less than 10 enemies, then do this action. Let's try that. Oh, it's still there. I forgot we needed to hide it. Hiding's easy. Okay, at the beginning of the scene, click green arrow, hide. There we go. Now the green arrow will be hidden. I'll just prove it to you. See, there's no green arrow. We want to unhide it when there's less than 10. So green arrow. Instead of hide, we click show. Alright. At the beginning of the scene, we hide the green arrow. When there is less than 10 enemies, we show the green arrow. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so far so good. There are 14 enemies left, 12, 11, 10. Okay, there it shows up now. And let's see, who should we kill first? 7, 6, 5. They're way down here. They can't escape. Alright. 4. I probably did inefficient pathing for chasing these guys. But it's proving that the arrow is really helping track these down at the end game. Maybe there'll be a cluster here I can kill them both. Alright, here we go, last one. Dun, dun, dun. We did it. We beat all the enemies. The green arrow's still there. We haven't coded what to do once all enemies are gone. But that's something that you can add, I'm sure. Oh, there was one cool thing I wanted to try just to show you how effects work. We're going to add an effect to the base layer, which the base layer is where everything is by default. Edit effects, and then you click add an effect. So one of my favorite effects is glow. So just take the defaults for glow. And now let's see what it looks like with the glow effect. That's all we have to do. It's just that one, those couple clicks. Now what glow does is it basically adds a white outline or around every object on that layer, which I think is kind of a cool effect. It's really making that smoke stand out from those explosions, isn't it? That's pretty cool. And yeah, I think it's just a fun effect. So that's how you do effects. GDevelop is so amazing in how easy it is to make. Hey, this went really fast. I defeated all the enemies. Alright. I just want to say GDevelop is so tremendously amazing. I love that it's open source. And I just hope that you have as much fun with it as I do. Okay, so what would you add to this game? There's a million things you could do from here. You could make fire particles go out the back of your ship so it looks like a real jet engine, rocket engine. You could make the enemies smarter. You could make them run away from you. Because right now they're just randomly moving. You could add boss enemies with all new behaviors. You could give your player weapons. You could give enemy weapons. You could add environmental hazards like black holes and gravity and power-ups. Basically, the possibilities are endless. So I'm excited to see what some of you have done. If you use this, I'll post the code to this so you can see what I've done and see what you want to add. It's so fun seeing what you can do. And I'll be honest, a lot of the times when I make a mistake, I end up liking the mistake better than what I was intending to do, and that kind of helps like randomly choose some improvements to the game. So, alright, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe, and I'll do my best to keep them coming. Thanks, and have a great night.